You know that moment when everyone around you is completely absorbed in a game. The room feels charged, as if the air itself is vibrating with expectation. People lean forward without realizing it. Their shoulders tense. Their breathing changes. Their bodies react before their thoughts do. A sound escapes someone's mouth, half cheer, half anxiety. There's shouting, laughter, sudden silence. Then noise again. The emotional energy keeps rising and falling like waves you're expected to ride. And you're just sitting there, watching. You understand the rules. You follow the score. You know who's winning and who's losing. But inside, nothing really moves. Not boredom, not confusion, just distance. A quiet separation between what everyone else seems to feel and what you feel, which is almost nothing. And sooner or later, a thought appears. Why don't I feel what they feel? Why does this matter so much to them? And not to me. Maybe you've tried to care. You've watched full games. You've stayed longer than you wanted to. You've listened to explanations and stories and statistics. You told yourself, maybe it'll click this time. But it never really does. And slowly that question turns inward. Is something wrong with me? Am I missing something essential, something human, that everyone else seems to have? But what if I told you there isn't? What if the reason some people never get hooked on sports has nothing to do with effort, intelligence, discipline, or taste? What if it has everything to do with how your brain creates meaning, how it processes reward, and how it forms identity? And once you understand that, something subtle shifts. What you always assumed was a lack starts to look more like a difference. Let's begin with the most basic layer, the body. Sports environments are intense by design. They're loud, fast, visually crowded, emotionally charged. There's constant movement, sudden sounds, sharp changes in momentum. Your nervous system has to process all of this at the same time. For many people, this feels energizing. Their body interprets intensity as excitement. But for others, the same intensity feels costly. Some nervous systems are more sensitive. They take in more information, and they take it in more deeply. If you're someone who feels drained by crowds, who needs quiet to think clearly, who feels tension rise in noisy environments, who notices subtle shifts in mood, tone, or atmosphere, then sports don't stimulate you. They exhaust you. Your system isn't wired to chase stimulation. It's wired to preserve balance. So instead of excitement, you feel effort. Instead of anticipation, you feel pressure. Your body is working hard just to stay regulated. This isn't a failure to engage. It's self-protection. Your nervous system is quietly saying, this environment demands more energy than it gives back. And that response isn't learned. It's biological. Now let's move from the body to the mind. Because sports aren't really about sports, they're about identity. When people follow a team, they're not just watching a game. They're participating in a shared story. A story of loyalty, of history, of belonging, of winning and losing together. That's why people say things like, we won, we lost. Even though they never stepped onto the field, for many minds, identity naturally attaches to groups. Belonging creates meaning. Shared emotion creates connection. The team becomes a symbol, a container for pride, hope, frustration, and continuity. But not all minds build identity this way. Some people experience themselves primarily from the inside. If you've always questioned group beliefs, felt uncomfortable with us versus them thinking, or defined yourself more by inner values than by affiliations, then sports don't offer the same psychological reward. Not because you're distant, not because you're cold, but because you don't borrow identity. You don't outsource meaning, you generate it internally. So when a team wins or loses, it doesn't feel personal. It feels external. Interesting, perhaps. Observable, but not emotionally binding. And without identity attachment, the hook never forms. Now we reach the deepest layer. The neuropsychology. Sports are in many ways a perfectly engineered dopamine system. uncertainty, near misses, sudden wins, unexpected losses. Your brain never knows what's coming next, and unpredictability triggers dopamine. For many people, this creates excitement, sharp emotional highs, deep emotional lows, a powerful sense of contrast. That contrast keeps them watching. But not all brains prioritize dopamine in the same way. Some brains are stimulation-oriented. Others are depth-oriented. Some crave emotional spikes. Others crave understanding. If you feel most fulfilled when you're learning something deeply, when you're creating something meaningful, when you're connecting ideas over time, when you're understanding how things work beneath the surface, then fast, unpredictable outcomes controlled by other people can feel strangely unsatisfying. Not boring, just shallow. Your brain isn't wired for drama, it's wired for insight. And insight doesn't come from winning or losing. It comes from understanding. This is where many people misinterpret themselves. They assume that not liking sports means they're lazy, or antisocial, or emotionally flat. But that interpretation misses the point. Some people regulate emotion externally through shared excitement, competition, and spectacle. Others regulate emotion internally through reflection, meaning, and presence. Some people feel alive in crowds. Others feel alive in stillness. Some recharge through noise. Others through quiet. Neither orientation is better, but one is louder. And in a loud culture, quiet orientations are often misunderstood. What you were told was indifference may actually be discernment. What you thought was a lack of passion may simply be passion that needs depth. Think about how your attention works. Attention is energy. When something truly aligns with your mind, you don't need to force yourself. Time disappears. Effort softens. You feel calm, but focused. That state doesn't come from obligation. It comes from resonance. And resonance is personal. For some people, it happens in stadiums. For others, in books, in ideas, in music, in long conversations, in quiet creation. If sports never pulled you in, it doesn't mean you lack engagement. It may mean you require meaning. There's a subtle pressure to enjoy what everyone else enjoys, to cheer when others cheer, to care about what seems universally important. But forcing interest never creates connection. It only creates fatigue. When you stop pretending, when you stop trying to match someone else's excitement, something opens. You reclaim attention. And attention is precious. It's the resource your mind uses to create a life that feels coherent. When that attention goes to places that truly feed you, you feel more like yourself, more grounded, more clear, more present. So here's the real question. Have you been avoiding sports, or have you been listening to your inner orientation all along? Because once you stop asking, why don't I care about this? And start asking, what actually absorbs me? The answer is usually quiet, but honest. When you lose track of time, when your mind feels engaged without tension, when you feel fulfilled without needing applause, what are you doing then? Because that place, not a field, not a scoreboard, not a crowd, might be your real arena,